Please join me in the salute of our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
States of America,
and to the republic
and to the republic
which stands
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty.
liberty, and justice for all.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of New Jersey, this is a state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2022 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2021, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk. Ms. Fritzen, roll
Ms.
call.
Adams, Ms. Adams,
Here.
Ms. Cripe,
Here.
Mr. DeLuca,
Here.
Mr. McGehee,
Here.
Mayor Daffis.
Here. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the governing body has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting. And whereas the desire of the governing body to comply with the provision of this act, same time it conducts its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee, Township Maplewood does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observation of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Cripe,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. McGehee,
Yes.
Mayor Daffis.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Good evening, Maplewood. Friends and neighbors, welcome to our first meeting of the new year 2022. Happy New Year. This is the first meeting that I have the honor and privilege of presiding over as the new mayor of Maplewood Township. We have a very light agenda this evening. We will begin with boards and committees as we always do. Although we have no appointments this evening, we will be making all of our board and committee appointments at our next meeting on the 18th of this month. We will segue immediately into our first public comment period. The first public comment period is always for agenda items only. We have one agenda item on for discussion this evening related to the use of gas-powered leaf blowers in town. Accordingly, during public comment, we will hear first from Rachel Metka and others from Quiet Maplewood as it relates to that. All other public comment this evening will be restricted to 3 minutes per person. We ask that you identify yourself, give us your name, your address, and if at all possible, and if you're comfortable, please be on camera so that we can see you. Mr. Waltz will convert you over from attendee to panelist to make that happen. We will then segue into our Board of Health meeting. I expect that we have a lot to discuss tonight in light of the exponential surge in transmissions in our community as reflected across the nation. Then we will go into administrative reports. We'll begin with Township Administrator Jives, then Township Attorney Desiderio, and finally we will hear from Township Clerk Madam Liz Fritzen. Then we will segue into reports from elected officials following the following order: Committee Member Adams, Committee Member McGehee, Deputy Mayor DeLuca, Committee Member Cripe, and then myself. I will always go last in these reports from elected officials. As I stated, we have one discussion item which relates to discussing converting from our current seasonal restriction of gas-powered leaf blower use into an all-year-long ban. And then we will adopt our consent agenda. I don't believe I've ever seen 36 resolutions on the same consent agenda, but there you have it. There are 36 of them this evening. I will not be reading them all because this meeting has been adequately posted. I do want to, however, note that we will be taking out number 12Q, a resolution that relates to making appropriations for consulting services for drainage improvements on Maple Terrace. Maple Terrace is the street that I live on. This relates to necessary improvements there that relate to stormwater drainage and related to the death of a dear neighbor and friend during Hurricane Ida. Accordingly, I will be recusing myself and abstaining during that vote. So we will pull out 12Q, have a vote on its own. We will adopt our agenda 12A through 12P, and then 12R through 12AJ. Again, we've never seen nomenclature like this because we've never had this many resolutions. I do want to highlight a few resolutions, however. 12J Resolution 14-22, suspending the payment of the EFT online fee for online tax and sewer payments. I just want to showcase to our residents that we carry on with our tradition of meeting the needs of all of our residents. We want to encourage folks to pay their taxes online if at all possible. If they have access to do that online, our drop boxes are still available. But we also recognize the undue financial hardship that many of our residents are experiencing. So we will continue suspending the EFT fee. We will be waiving that. Also, I'd like to point out 12K, resolution number 15-22, authorizing acceptance of partial tax and sewer payments. We adopted an ordinance back in 2018 that allows for partial tax payments and sewer payments. Again, this shows that we care about all of our residents and all of their needs. Some folks need to make partial payments, and we accept those. I also want to highlight 12D, talking about taxes. Take a look at that one, resolution number 8-22, authorizing Board of Education payments to the school district for the next 6 months in the neighborhood of $38,435,000 plus dollars. So if you wonder where your taxes are going, that's your answer. So, and after we adopt our consent agenda, we will go into our second public comment on any subject matter, and then we will adjourn. So, boards and committees, as I said, we don't have any appointments this evening. We're gonna go right into public comment. Mr. Waltz, do we have Ms. Metka or anyone else from Quiet Maplewood who have joined us this evening, converting them over to panelists so that they can make their 5-minute presentation?
Good evening, Mayor and Township Committee. We'll now begin the first public comment portion of the meeting on agenda items only. If you would like to address the Township Committee, please use the raise your hand function. We will convert you over to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes to speak. First up, Mr. Mayor, we have Rachel Metcalf. We will allow you to speak and address the Township Committee at this time.
Thank you. Can you see me, or is this just hear me?
You're all good.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Daffis and Township Committee members. Tonight, I have come to speak on behalf of Quietwood Maplewood members and petition signers. We would like to first congratulate Mayor Dean Daffis, Deputy Mayor Vic DeLuca, and newly elected Committeewoman Jermaine Kripe on their new positions on our town's governing body. Also, we would like to congratulate Nancy Adams on her re-election. And finally, we are thankful to former Mayor McGehee for leading our town through some of the most difficult times in history and your continued service to this community. This is a new year and a new governing body. We are hopeful for the transformational leadership needed this year because our planet simply cannot survive the status quo. Quiet Maplewood members support you in the decisions that this committee will have to make as they show the leadership that Maplewood needs. We need you to lead on the important climate and public health issue of phasing out gas leaf blowers in Maplewood. In 2017, Maplewood banned gas-powered leaf blowers during the summer months. Other Northeast municipalities have since gone even further. A complete ban is currently in effect in Larchmont, New York. In the District of Columbia, no one may sell or use a gas-powered leaf blower as of last week. Gas leaf blowers have been banned in 20 California cities, and starting in 2024, the sale of gas leaf blowers will be illegal in the state of California. This year, the news has been filled with articles about towns across the country doing the same. On May 4th, 2021, Maplewood's Environmental Advisory Committee proposed a 2-year phase out of gas leaf blowers. The proposal was endorsed by Soma Action and the Green Team. 2 physicians, Dr. Rosa Nesson, an audiologist, and Dr. Strelnick, a professor of epidemiology, spoke on the health risks that gas leaf blowers pose to workers and residents. Dan Delventhal, CEO of Mo Green, a gas-free lawn care company in Bridgeport, Connecticut, described how advancements in electric blowers have made them more than adequate for the job. All 3 urged the Township Committee to limit the use of gas leaf blowers in Maplewood. On November 8, 2021, Quiet Maplewood circulated a petition asking our Township Committee to phase out gas leaf blowers over the next 2 years. We currently have 330 signatures from Maplewood residents, collected with minimal social media posting. The city of Mountain Brook, Alabama achieved a green zone certification for 4 public areas of the city after replacing much of its gas-powered maintenance equipment with electric tools. Stuart Welch, the mayor of Mountain Brook, said, "The driver for him was how much they care about their employees, to think about the tons of emissions they are standing in for a career. 8 hours of work is equivalent of inhaling the amount of carbon monoxide emitted from the tailpipe of a car for 64 hours. Time is up. We need to protect public health, the environment, and our quality of life. In Al Gore's 2021 climate talk, he chose the town of Cranford, New Jersey. This is 20 minutes away from Maplewood, to show the devastating effects of warming oceans on our daily lives. Let's work together and bring this issue to a vote. We support our mayor and our committee members as they provide the leadership Maplewood needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, for your thoughtful and strong presentation. I hope you'll stick around for our discussion. We may have some questions.
Absolutely.
We should get there very shortly. Mr. Waltz?
Mayor, next I have Joy Yagged. Convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes.
There we go. Hi. Hello, Township Committee. Thank you for allowing me to speak. And I also thank Rachel because I'm going to just add my personal feelings on this. I run a Facebook gardening group and we are very concerned about the environment. My issues with the leaf blowers are pollution, formaldehyde, benzene, particulate. It's a 2-stroke engine. It spews out unburnt gas. It is not good to breathe, either for the people around and also for, we as a town are big on social justice, and you can't have these workers who are probably not being paid very much at all, constantly breathe all that in. For my personal opinion on this, I can't get away from the noise in my own house. Today, neighbor right next to me, 30 minutes of pushing around, I don't know, a half dozen of leaves. and up against my house, it's just, I can't find quiet in my own house especially when things overlap. So when it's not them, it's the people across the street, or it's one in the backyard that abuts to my backyard. The noise just comes right through the walls, and it is just, I can't concentrate. Environmental, we're big on environmental, both as a town and my group and myself. It blows away a huge chunk of the food web that our environment requires. I mean, it takes out all the caterpillars and the solitary bees, the bugs. These all, pollinate our flowers. They feed baby birds. They feed baby possums. They feed all these things that make living in this wonderful green tree-filled place a pleasure. And finally, I just want to say that we can sign all our petitions, we can march, we can do all of that, and we can try to save the Amazon, we can write checks to the Nature Conservancy, but as a town and as a people, we need to really pay attention to what's happening
30 seconds.
in the backyard. That's it. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy.
Mayor, next up, I have someone who doesn't have a last name. So Rona, we'll convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes.
Mayor, just for procedure, each person should full name and address like they do in, back in the day when we were in person.
We did provide that instruction. Thank you for the reminder, Ms. Adams.
Can you see me?
We can.
Yeah. I just gonna piggyback off of what has already been said.
Rona, excuse me, would you kindly introduce yourself and give us your address?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. My full name is Rona Questel. I wasn't thinking about that when I signed in, and my address is 66 Maplewood Avenue. I am in the same place with Joy in terms of the noise when especially now with so many people working from home, kids are sometimes, schools are closed again, kids are trying to school at home. The noise is unbelievable. I will say in my particular area, I've noticed it a little bit less because I feel like now that they stopped collecting the leaves, there's less leaf blowing, but it was unbearable for a few weeks there where it's just constant. If it's not one house, it's another. The noise is so loud that it literally bounces off of one house to the next. And when I run outside to see who's doing it now, I have to literally look to see what's going on because I can't tell where the noise is coming from because it bounces off of all the different houses. I once went out when my next door neighbor, who I love, had her landscaping service was out there, not one, not two, but 3 guys with the gas powered leaf blowers. They were out there like Ghostbusters, like maniacs and there were hardly any leaves. And I started screaming at them. I literally had to scream bloody murder and start waving my hands like a lunatic to get them to look at me, to get them to turn the things off and yell at them about what they were doing. Like, why do they need so many? There's no leaves to even blow. The whole thing was crazy. And then while I went to go look at their truck to see who's the landscaping service behind it, across the street on the other side of Maplewood Avenue were 2 gas-powered lawnmowers left running unattended on another person's lawn that were theirs. I mean, that is to me just a dangerous thing. The whole thing was just so outrageous. Every time those blowers start, I can feel my blood pressure rise. I can feel my blood boil, and it just makes me crazy. On top of that, as Joy pointed out, there's a new push now to promote native plants, native pollinators, leave the leaves, allow the leaves to just do their natural thing that nature intended and not sweep them all up and make everything all neat and tidy and perfect. And I think it actually looks much more beautiful when you just leave the leaves, leave your plants, let the birds and insects and do whatever they need to do over the winter and then clean up in the spring. In my opinion, 2 years is too long.
30 seconds.
I feel like this should have been done yesterday. And I feel like it's going to be like the smoking ban, where once this is gone, we'll wonder how we ever allowed it. And nobody will think, wow, I wish we could go back to that. It will be unbelievable that we ever lived with this and thought it was okay. It's not.
10
okay.
seconds.
And we should also ban all gas-powered lawn equipment, all of it. That's my opinion. I'm
Thank you.
done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, before we continue, meeting attendees, please make sure that you address your full first and last name as well as your address before addressing the Township Committee. Next, we have Julia Flath. We'll convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Julia Flath. I live in South Orange at 266 Titchener Avenue. I, have been impacted by leaf blowers during many play dates, runs, and bike rides in Maplewood, even though I don't live in the town. And I think Maplewood should continue being a leader in sustainability by banning gas leaf blowers year-round. We need now to take more direct action to safeguard healthy and livable communities against the impacts of the climate crisis. A study has shown that a half hour of yard work with a 2-stroke gas leaf blower produces about the same hydrocarbon emissions as a drive from Texas to Alaska. I was shocked to learn that when I moved to the suburbs, and I think if more people knew it, they would agree it is time to stop using them. The noise pollution, the air pollution, the emissions, and the literal blowing away of wildlife that shelter in the leaves over the winter are all unnecessary and need to stop, given that there are better alternatives. My own family finds it manageable to do a combination of raking and leaving the leaves in place on our large yard. I would also like to ask for the ban on gas-powered blowers to include the blowers used by mosquito spraying services. It's also terrifying to watch the power that those blow pesticides all over our yards and air, and they should be held to the same emission standards as other landscaping services. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your advocacy.
Mayor, next I have Rujen Shen. We'll convert you to a panelist. Please give your first and last name as well as your address before addressing the Township Committee.
Okay, hi. Can everyone hear me? Okay, I see myself. My name is Rujing Shen. I live at 42 Plymouth Avenue in Maplewood. I've attended few township committee meetings on the and talked about this and had my comments on the same topic. I feel like I'm a broken record by now. So I think a lot of things we've already heard over and over again, the emissions, the noise. I also feel like my blood pressure shoots up every time I hear these things, but I hear them all the time. I just wanted to add a couple more comments on this. One is I want folks to know that climate policy is not just on the state level, on a federal level. Towns and cities have a huge amount of things to do. We've heard that New York City, for example, has recently banned gas usage in all new buildings. We've heard Ithaca is striving to try to electrify the whole city. And what can we do as a town that build ourselves as a progressive and liberal and all those wonderful things? I think banning leaf blowers, gas-powered leaf blowers, seems to be quite of a low-hanging fruit compared to some other things, for example, wholesale electrification of our houses. So I think that I agree with the previous speaker that I think a 2-year transition feels kind of long. If we could do it within the year, that would be fantastic. And also I want to comment on the sort of a consequence of this leaf blowing business. Over the past month or two, when I was driving in our towns, I noticed these giant leaf mountains on the roads that sometimes literally occupy half the streets. And knowing that how dark our streets are in evenings, it is actually also a sort of a driving hazard, because sometimes only half the streets can be usable because these giant piles of leaves are in the way. And obviously, not everybody obeys the rules of only dumping leaf in the street within 7 days of the leaf collections. So they're always there. And when there's big rains coming down, then they obviously clog the drainage system. So it feels like it's just really stupid to try to blow these leaves away and then make the town spend all the time and money and resources, pick them
seconds.
up. And then, and come spring, everybody goes to Home Depot and buy fertilizer and topsoil. It's just ridiculous waste of energy, and it also causes so much emissions and health issues. So I would strongly encourage the Township Committee to consider a wholesale ban on these machines. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Shen.
Mayor, next I have Adam Rudolph. We'll convert you a panelist in only 3 minutes. Full name and address, please. You're
Mr.
muted,
Rudolph,
sir.
you're muted.
Now you can hear me. Thank you. My name's Adam Rudolph, and I live at 60 Burnett in the Gulf Island. And grateful for your time and also for all of the wonderful comments that have happened so far. Just need to speak out in support for that. I think everybody has noticed, at least I have, that since the middle of December, the beautiful relative quiet that has descended upon us is great. But from September 15th about till December 15th, my experience is that pretty much from dawn to dusk, 6 and sometimes 7 days a week, we can hear these leaf blowers either close up or from afar. They travel, they're incredibly loud, and the sound travels for at least a mile or more. And it does add distress. I think more and more of us work at home. I'm a composer of music, so you can imagine for me, there's sort of no escape. The sound comes into our homes, and it's just it's a disaster. I think the point is that there's a clear and simple alternative, which is electric blowers. And yes, it's totally appropriate for the local government to incentivize people who want to do business here to do it in a way that's ecologically sound. I'm also a lover of nature, and one of the great things about living here is our proximity. And I think we should be caring and careful for the other beings who live here. And it's clear that due to the sound and the pollution that it's and the chain of it's not sustainable. So I think it's a clear and simple thing that could be done that would really improve the quality of life. By the way, there's so much scientific evidence. I have an article which I'd be glad to share sometime if you're interested, that was published in the New Yorker in 2019 called Volume Metrics, that has tons and tons of information about how, well, basically they said if you could take the pollution, the sound pollution, and that we
30
experience
seconds.
and experience it, it would be as though there were McDonald's hamburger wrappers all over the place. So I hope you'll do the right thing and improve the quality of life here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rudolph. And I don't think that even American composer Philip Glass could make music out of the noise of gas-powered leaf blowers. But let's move
Somebody
on.
who I work with, by the way, huh? A friend of mine. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly it. Yeah. It's hard to concentrate. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Rudolph. Mr. Waltz?
Mayor, next I have Jonathan Poor. We'll convert you to a panel in now 3 minutes. Again, please, first and last name and full address. Thank you.
Hello. My name's Jonathan Poor, 35 Roosevelt Road in Maplewood. I agree with all of the environmental and quality of life issues brought up so far, but I wanted to just briefly talk about the kind of the history. I go way back in Maplewood. I've been in my current house 26 years. My dad is a graduate of Columbia High School. My grandparents lived on Duran Road when I was growing up. Actually, so I asked my father, who lived in Maplewood in the 40s and 50s, what did people do with leaves when he was growing up? And the answer was they raked them out into the street and burned them. And so eventually, I think this became something that people realized was not a great practice. And so the town took it upon itself to collect them with those great big trucks with the vacuums, which they still were operating when I moved here in 1995. But now you don't see them anymore because I think the volume of leaves pulled into the street by the landscapers is so much greater than what people in their individual houses could do with rakes, that it's just not viable. Plus, it's not just leaves that they're putting out in the street now with the blowers. They're putting out soil, potted plants, pumpkins, it's branches. It's much more than what was originally there. And so I think what's happened is that market forces, this is a case where the market has sort of driven us insane, or created an insane practice that seems normal, but is really not. And when the market does that, that's when government needs to come in and regulate. I think what you've seen over the last 20 years, in 1995, maybe half of the people in our block had landscapers, maybe less. Now it's pretty much 100%, except for me. I get my neighbor's leaves and bring them back into my yard because I use them for compost. It's gold, people. Don't let people take this stuff away. Keep it. It's worth a lot for all the reasons stated by other people. But I think over these 25 years, the number of houses that are using landscapers has increased. Also, the number of men in the teams that come to pick up leaves has grown from like 2 to 3 to 4 or 5 even. And the power of the machines has also grown. So you have kind of an escalation, a competition to see who can get more material from the yards into the street, where the town is obligated to pick it up at the town's expense. This is a crazy system that I think needs to be adjusted.
10 seconds.
And a great way to do it would be, first of all, ban year-round the use of gas-powered leaf blowers. Beyond that, I think the town should consider whether we'd be picking all this stuff up. Other towns force people, like Montclair will have you bag leaves, which puts a kind of a break.
Mayor, next I have Helen Bierney. We'll convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, you called someone named Helen?
Yes.
I'm not Helen, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's what your name states. I apologize.
Oh, really?
Oh, sorry. Okay, so you said Helen Burney? That's me.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. I see. I see another person up. So my name's Helen Burney. I live at 55 Kendall Avenue in Maplewood. And I have a health coaching practice where I run my practice out of my home, and namely my studio garage space, which I consider to be a therapeutic setting. But this year, with how much we have had to work from home and the increase of growth in my business, I've had a lot of issues with even just meeting with women who are trying to tell me about their deep personal needs and what they need in their lives, and that being interrupted by the nuisance and noise of the gas leaf blowers, where I have to apologize to somebody who's sharing their heart and soul with me for giving a moment to let the leaf blowers go by. And that's just unacceptable for me, for my business, and for anybody who works closely with anyone who is going through life transformation, to have to be interrupted by that. It's a real problem. Along with other people, I know we're trying to provide top services from our homes, particularly with working from home. And with what I do, I just feel like I can't do it effectively if I have to apologize for the leaf blowers going all the time. I stopped my yard workers. I can't stop my neighbors from hiring these workers. I've gone out and asked them to please come back if they can't do it. And so a ban would really be helpful in that way. I also run a running group. The leaf piles in the middle of the streets are a real problem. It's a big hazard. When we run together, we have to run around them. We do run in the dark with lights responsibly and communicate with each other. But the fact that we have to deal with these huge piles all of the time is also a hazard. And since joining Quiet Maplewood, I've learned so much about the environmental impacts, which I hadn't thought about until I joined that and said, yes, this is a noise issue, but this is really a human rights and an environmental issue that I now feel really passionately about that. Just a couple weeks ago, we were raking the leaves in our yard to make a big pile, and my kids are jumping in with joy and throwing the leaves around. And I just thought, this is life. Like, we need to teach our kids how to take care of things that we want to take care of, and how just bringing it back to being a part of the land and being a part of that kind of joy really struck me as something special that we're missing in trying to just lawn manicure all of the time. Anything that's way over convenient for any human population typically lends itself to something that's disastrous. And I think that's the road that we're on. So I want to thank you all for your time. Thank you so much, Rachel, for an amazing ask. And I hope that you guys move forward with it. There's a better way. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ms. Burney.
Mayor, next I have Emily Fromm. We'll convert you to a panelist. Allow you 3 minutes. Please provide your full name and your full address. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Emily Fromm. I live at 56 Bowdoin Street in Maplewood. And the aspect of this issue that I wanted to focus on today is the impact on workers. Hopefully by the time I finished, you'll agree with me that causing non-unionized, low-paid, and often immigrant workers to risk illness and in some cases long-term disability is just not really something that a town like Maplewood should allow. So I'm going to read some data on the impact of operating a gas-powered leaf blower. OSHA requires that that companies provide operators with hearing protection. A lot of guys I see out on the street don't have anything. In any case, most hearing protectors on the market are not capable of abating noise, the noise of 100+ decibel machine down to the required 85 decibel OSHA standard. However, even if they could, the CDC has found that just 2 hours of exposure to 85 decibel noise can cause permanent hearing loss. Most cheap or mid-range leaf blowers expose users to up to 112 decibels, which can cause instant pain and ear injury, with hearing loss possible in less than 2 to 5 minutes. In addition, I'd like to give some testimony that was collected by the nonprofit news organization Fair Warning, which reports on workplace issues. First testimony is from Freddie Dubon, an immigrant from El Salvador who worked for a landscaping company in Seattle, but finally quit after getting migraine headaches pretty much every day. That's a quote. He now organizes other landscaping workers for safer conditions and reports that they tell him, quote, they feel dizzy or nauseous, their eyes water, and their bodies ache after operating the machines. Sergio Maldonado, a Guatemalan immigrant who has done landscaping in Miami for 18 years, says he can't complain to his employers. Quote, if you don't do it and you're working for another person, they'll fire you. And then who's going to bring home food, end quote. Finally, Richard Valenzuela, a grounds maintenance worker at Cal State University, Los Angeles, says
30 seconds.
He is thankful that the university has begun phasing out the gas machines and switching to electric equipment. It's really going to be a benefit for us, he said. That stuff goes straight to your lungs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Fromm.
Mayor, next I have Virginia Lamb. Converge to a panelist in 3 minutes.
Hi. Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we just need your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Virginia Lamb, 3 Winthrop Place. I'm also a Quiet Maplewood member, a SOMA Climate Action member, and I'm on the Maplewood Green Team. thank you all for your time and for your service. And I just would like, I don't want to repeat what everyone, all the excellent points that people have made. But I just wanted to add a few items to, urge moving forward on this year-round ban. I feel like just the more we know, and I've learned so much from the Quiet Maplewood campaign, the more we know, the more egregious it is that these machines are allowed for all the reasons you've heard, public health and safety. And we have the ability basically to protect the health and safety of workers, the public, and the environment with this simple gesture. So why shouldn't we? Even Home Depot now is offering rebates for gas blowers. And if you buy a new electric blower. So it's definitely the trend, as you've heard. Other cities, even now California is going to ban them outright. So sorry. All right, and John Poor mentioned that he collects other people's leaves, and I have to say, because of the Quiet Maplewood campaign, I used to do that, but I found out that the uncombusted gas goes straight out the blower. So now I don't want to take those leaves coated with gasoline and put them in my home compost pile. So I don't want to add all that nasty stuff back into my landscape, but I'm trying to, keep clean. And people were talking about the end of the season, but it's like the warming winter has kept the blowers out longer. The blowers have been going on these past few weeks, and I'm another person who works at home, and I have to stop what I'm doing, on calls to accommodate the noise. So it's really a loss in productivity on a lot of levels. So basically, in summary, we really have the ability to create a new awareness and a new aesthetic, and we can advocate to landscapers and the public on the critical need to restore natural cycles and create desperately needed healing. And so I know that that's something we can all get behind, and I count on your transformational leadership to accomplish this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lamb.
Mayor, next I have a first name only. It's under Ellen, so we'll convert you to a panelist, but if you please provide your first and last name as well as your address, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
To unmute. Hi, it's Ellen Archer. Very sorry, I didn't know about the last name. I'm at 109 Hilton Avenue. Congratulations, everybody, to who've been newly elected and instated. Welcome, and I'm glad that you're here to listen to us. We've heard and will hear from many community members regarding the science behind a full ban on gas leaf blowers that include various facts such as leaf blowers emit hurricane force winds of 200 miles per hour and more, that they 1 hour of use releases up to 500 times of the hydrocarbons, that's more than 26 times the carbon monoxide as an average sized car. So here's what I think. I believe a partial ban doesn't work. It's nearly impossible to enforce. Even the details of a partial ban are not enforceable. Landscapers routinely have 3 to 4 gas blowers going at once on one property alone. And there are huge numbers of postings all across Facebook with residents complaining about the constant droning, the pollution, the disruption to their daily lives. They can't have a conversation out on their deck or in their home. I mean, I work from home as a voiceover and audiobook narrator and a singer, and have rarely made it through more than a day without having to stop upwards of 45 minutes for the leaf blowers. We know how harmful this is to the employees of these landscapers using these blowers. Those residents who say that they are concerned that these employees will be out of a job without using gas blowers seem to have not yet connected the dots to the health issues of these employees who are forced by their landscaper bosses to use the gas blowers. Health issues like deafness and respiratory illnesses. Any homeowner can tell a landscaper not to use a gas blower, but instead to rake or mulch or even use an electric blower. The landscapers do what you ask them to do, what you expect them to do. Some residents worry that a ban will bankrupt landscapers or that they will raise their prices astronomically.
30 seconds.
Thank you. But we know that there are many landscapers across the country who have successfully converted from gas blowers and have a robust business without a significant, if any, increased cost to their customers. There is no crucial need to have a carefully leafless manicured lawn. In fact, for the survival and health of our planet, it's best that the leaves remain. I think the heart of it all is that we have to tweak our
10
expectations.
seconds.
Thank you. We have to tweak our expectations of what is beautiful, that a well-maintained yard can have leaves and mulch. I find it an interesting exercise to question my discomfort, my long-term inflexible thinking, because
That is
that's
your time.
it's always been. Thank you so much for listening. Take
Thank you.
care.
Mayor, next I have Dan Segal. We'll convert you to panelist and allow you 3 minutes. Please provide your full name and address.
Hello, my name is Dan Siegel. I live at 38 Suffolk Avenue. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I read the statements of each member of the Township Committee at their swearing-in ceremony. The comments by Committeewoman Adams and Committeewoman Kripe were particularly moving, and I was struck by their humility and their attitude towards public service. I've lived in Maplewood for 30 years, and I've seen how pervasive gas-powered leaf blowers have become. They are really the equivalent of portable toxic smokestacks put up right outside your kitchen window. They would never be permitted in any other context. On the substance of this issue, everything that needs to be said is on the Quiet Maplewood website. The website identifies the issues, offers solutions, and is highly informative. I'll mention that on one sunny and beautiful day a couple of months ago, I witnessed a lawn crew working in a front yard with 2 or 3 leaf blowers, while a woman providing childcare sat on the front stoop with a 3-year-old and a less than 1-year-old baby. The fumes and the noise were a few feet away from them. I'm not criticizing the person providing childcare or the workers. I'm criticizing an absence of common sense business regulations, which have enabled a variation of this situation to be repeated all over town every day during the fall months. Here's another reason the ordinance needs to be revised and made all year round. Someone I know who completely agrees with all the goals set forth on the Quiet Maplewood site said he can't tell the lawn maintenance company how to run their business, so they continue to use harmful equipment. These harmful machines are not just an annoyance and not just more noticeable because people are working from home. They do real harm to residents, and these residents are breathing from home, and they give off preventable emissions contributing to climate change. There's no debate on the science. There's no groundswell of opinion clamoring for more air pollution and more noise pollution. To date, inexplicably, by not making the ban year-round and not listening to the supporters of Quiet Maplewood, a few members of the Township Committee have chosen to be willfully negligent on this issue and willfully ignore the science during the fall months. We use our lungs all year long, and we deserve cleaner air all year long. This is a test of the quality of the leadership at the Township Committee. Your legacy will not be measured by how many proclamations are made saying Maplewood is green. The test is whether meaningful action is taken to remedy this problem and whether the health of the residents and the environment are truly the highest priority. Thank you.
Mayor, next I have Jane Conrad. We'll convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Jane Conrad, 35 Roosevelt Road. Well, I am a longtime Maplewood resident, moved here in 1995, really before the era of the leaf blower, which we are now in. And I just, it's been a long fight. I think Vic DeLuca will remember meetings back in 2003 when we were, when we had, my husband and I had preschoolers, and, we're desperately trying to get some relief. So I'm grateful to Rachel and, the new attention that all this is getting. I think it's clear that, in a pandemic with everyone working from home, or many people working from home, newly aware of the noise burden, the pollution burden, and the respiratory burden that this is putting on all of us, it's not surprising that all over the country there's a move to regulate and ban leaf blowers. And I just want to say you will be such heroes if you follow through on this. People will take heart, and people will, even more people will want to move to Maplewood than already do. Just a couple things I wanted to mention. Earlier speakers talked about the hazard to the workers of leaf blowers. And I wanted to point out, I believe that Maplewood can support a more artisanal model of yard care than what we have. The business model of most landscapers now is quantity, not quality. It's the number of yards they can do fast. And it's not good gardening, and it's not good for the workers themselves. It's a type of industrial piecework in which we are the factory owners and they're working on our properties. And, gardening is a noble profession. And this use of leaf blowers has led to a kind of de-skilling of workers who, if they were not required to blow properties, they could concentrate on things like pruning, which really can enhance the beauty and value of properties. So I think there's many ways that there's many types of work they could do, and there's ways that Maplewood could support that type of yard care business.
30 seconds.
The other thing I wanted to point out is that leaf blowers remove topsoil. I've seen this happen over the 20 years we've lived here. My neighbors' yards absorb much less rainwater, and this should be a concern to all of us with the added rainfall and flooding that we've seen. Thank you very much.
Mayor, next I have Karen Correa. A virtual panelist, and allow you 3 minutes. Again, please, full name and address. Thank you.
Okay. Hi. Hello, Mayor and Township Committee. My name is Karen Cannon Correa. I live at 35 Euclid Avenue in Maplewood. Like everybody else, I'd like to thank you so much for the opportunity to speak here at this meeting. And like the other commenters, I'd like to spend a minute addressing the issue of gas leaf blowers. So while I'm very concerned about the environmental and health impacts of gas leaf blowers, I think perhaps the most obvious and most important issue here is the noise. Noise as a stressor causes physiological alterations that affect cardiovascular, respiratory, and metabolic health. And I recently read a study about the impact of noise from road traffic on mortality, which actually showed that the impacts can actually exceed the impacts of PM 2.5, which are the fine inhalable particles that damage health for people of all ages. And I would argue that noise from gas leaf blowers can be just as bad, if not worse, than that of road traffic, and the impacts are worse for children. I really believe that noise regulation is going to become an important part of the future of urban sustainability, and I would love to see Maplewood out in front of this issue. And finally, on a personal note, and as another musician here, the sound of gas leaf blowers is not the kind of sound that I, or probably anyone I think, wants to hear in Maplewood. So I hope we can move closer to being the modern, quiet town that I imagine Maplewood to be. So that's all I have, and thank you so much for your time and attention to this important issue.
Mayor, next up I have Alanya Friedman. We'll convert you to a panelist in like 3 minutes.
Hi, can you see and hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Alanya Friedman. I'm a freshman at CHS, and I live at 85 Jefferson Avenue in Maplewood, New Jersey. I have 3 points that I'd like to make about how gas-powered leaf blowers are not only very noisy, but they're also harmful to the environment and to the health of residents of Maplewood. Firstly, regarding pollution, there was a study conducted by the California Air Resources Board that showed that, quote, operating the best-selling commercial leaf blower for 1 hour emits as much smog-forming pollution as driving 1,100 miles in a 2017 Toyota Camry. That is for only 1 hour, so please consider how damaging gas-powered leaf blowers are to the environment when they are being used for hours a day, most days a week, throughout the fall season. Secondly, the health impact. In addition to the environmental effects, gas-powered leaf blowers are also very detrimental to the health of Maplewood residents and the people who are using leaf blowers. These leaf blowers emit toxins such as benzene and formaldehyde, which, according to the NIH, quote, pose more cancerous than almost any organic air pollutants in the United States, end quote. Thirdly, there's noise pollution, which, and due to COVID-19, many students and adults have had to work from home, so the leaf blowers produce a very loud and distracting noise, which makes it very difficult to focus on the task at hand. So what are some alternatives? For one, electric powered leaf blowers, which compared to gas powered leaf blowers are much better for the environment, not as noisy, nor do they emit harmful toxins. Another eco-friendly approach would be moving the fallen leaves to garden beds where they act as mulch to insulate the plants. Additionally, mixing fallen leaves with lawn clippings and other organic materials can create a natural fertilizer, which is perfect for lawns and gardens. By banning gas-powered leaf blowers in Maplewood, I think we can make our town a much greener and healthier place to live. Thank you.
Mayor, that is all I have for you.
Thank you, Mr. Waltz, and thank you to everyone who spoke up tonight thoughtfully. We really appreciate you taking the time and joining us and speaking out and showcasing your advocacy. And I particularly am fond of our youth when they do that and being engaged. So it makes us all proud and we're all thankful for it. So with that, we're going to move over to our Board of Health meeting. Ms. Fritzen.
Yes, Mayor, thank you very much. I'll be conducting the Board of Health reorganization meeting until we get to the point where we do have a president for 2022. So without further ado, pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2022 to the News Record Star Ledger, December 2021, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk. Now I'll be taking a roll call for the Board of Health members' attendance. Ms. Adams?
Here.
Ms. Cripe?
Here.
Mr. DeLuca?
Here.
Mr. McGeehee? And Mayor Daffis.
Here, sorry.
Thank you.
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7 provides that the Board of Health has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting. And whereas desire the Maplewood Board of Health to comply with the provision of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner. Now therefore be resolved by the Maplewood Board of Health, Township of Maplewood, that it does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the Board of Health by the public, except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observations of the actions and discussions of the Board of Health and all its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Can I get a motion?
We did it already. Second.
Seconded. Yep.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Cripe?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGeehee?
Yes.
Mayor Daffis?
Yes.
Members of the Maplewood Board of Health, now would be the time that we begin conducting the president for 2022. And I would like to hear from anyone who would like to make a nomination for the Maplewood Board of Health president for 2022.
I nominate Mr. McGeehee to serve as president of the Maplewood Board of Health for 2022.
Second.
Are there any other nominations for Maplewood Board of Health President 2022? Someone please move that the nominations be closed.
I move nominations be closed.
Second.
Okay, so the nominations are closed. We have not one nominee, Mr. McGeehee. So let me take a roll call for that person for Board of Health President for 2022. Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Cripe,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. McGeehee,
Yes.
Mayor Daffis.
Yes.
I declare Mr. McGeehee the Maplewood Board of Health President for the year 2022. Congratulations.
Thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and thank you to my colleagues. It's good to be back. All right, well, let's go ahead and move forward. And at this point, do we have the minutes that we want to approve from the December meeting? Take a motion for that.
So moved.
A second, please.
Second.
Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Cripe,
Yes.
Mayor Daffis.
Ms. Cripe cannot vote. She was not on the Board of Health in 2021.
All right.
I'll second the minutes.
Okay,
Start the roll call again, Ms. Fritzen, please.
I'm about to. Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Cripe,
Yes, my apologies.
No,
No,
you have to
abstain.
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 I abstain.
Mayor Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. McGeehee.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We'll now move on to hear our report from our health officer. I'll yield the floor to Ms. Davenport.
Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome. And welcome, Ms. Cripe, to the Board of Health. So I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. So let's go to the numbers here. Sorry. Currently, our numbers are not looking good. So I just wanted you to focus on our total cases since we started is 3,289. For the month of December, we've had 1,316 cases. This is about a third of our total entire cases were in the month of December 2021. In comparison, November of 2021, we had 90 cases and a total at the time of 1,973. So just want to let you know that this is what we were dealing with. This is the Omicron surge. This is what high community transmission looks like. And this is also the result of increased testing that we did not have even as robustly as we have it a year ago. So, but this is the status of where we are right now, and it is not slowing down. As for the state status, statewide, as you can see, Essex County is in the Northeast, and we are in very high community transmission. Half of our state is also in very high community transmission. So we're monitoring this very, very carefully. There's about a 33% positivity rate of cases right now. So it is increasing with across all age groups. Last month, from 12/5 to 12/11, I just want to highlight where Omicron variant sits. It was at 8% of our total cases that were sequenced through breakthrough cases. The majority of that was Delta, which you'll see in the gold bars there. You can see how Delta dominated for several months prior to this moment. I want to show you what it is right now. It went from 8 to now, if you refer to the bottom, it is now about 14%. And it is increasing. That number of 14% is probably an underestimation because these are numbers from just even a week ago. They think that when we spoke to the state health department, that number is actually much higher of the dominance of Omicron variant as of now. What I want to highlight for you is how quickly, as you can see, Delta, I'll go back again. Delta took its time. You see these multiple colors here at the beginning, And then it increases and it has this humongous increase in June. Omicron is doing the same thing, if not faster. And this is partly due to how it's spreading so quickly to the community. Just want to give you our Maplewood vaccination stats as of December 27th. So for our 5 and up, all of our age groups, we are almost 89% fully vaccinated as a community. Once those who have their first dose at the time will reach a potential total of 104%. That just exceeds expectations. I can't encourage people enough to please get vaccinated. And I'll move on to also saying that people who are eligible to get boosters, please do so. That is everyone ages 16 and up are eligible to get either a Pfizer or a Moderna booster. Pfizer would only be for the 16 to 17-year-olds right now, but they're eligible. Just to note that the FDA did approve the 12 to 15-year-olds to get a booster, but we are still waiting on the CDC and the ACIP, that's the Academy of Pediatrics, to approve 12 to 15-year-olds to get the booster. So we are waiting on that, and that should come down shortly. That'll again be for the Pfizer booster. But what I also want to highlight here is that the ages specifically 12 to 17, 89% of our students and children are vaccinated. Our vaccination target are still the 11% who are unvaccinated and eligible individuals, ages 12 to 17. I also want to highlight, which I didn't get to put on here, is that our 5 to 11-year-olds, I want to encourage everyone to get their children vaccinated who are of that age group. You may not realize it, but you are eligible now to get vaccinated, again, for the Pfizer vaccine, and that's 5 to 11-year-olds. As we go into schools and we want to reduce community transmission entering into our schools as much as possible, I want to strongly emphasize that people should get their children vaccinated who are eligible. Speaking of boosters, I want to bring you to the bottom note, which is that 60% is the percentage of eligible Maplewood residents who have already received their booster or third dose. So keep it going, guys. We need to make sure that everyone gets boosted. With the booster, you have a 75% coverage increase to Omicron and its effectiveness. So again, the booster dose increases your immunity so that it is 75% effective. Without it, unfortunately, if you have just the 2 doses and you're greater than 6 months out, the vaccine tends to wane over time. And so its effectiveness against Omicron variant is about 35%. So again, emphasizing that you need to get that booster to deal with the current situation that we're dealing with right now. The school district is working with the MediMobile, and they have increased additional testing dates for this week while our staff and students at the schools are virtual. Now, of course, these are open to the schools and the students and their staff, but this is also open to families and residents. So please feel free to utilize these additional testing dates. These are being held at the Board of Ed building, which is at 525 Academy Street in Maplewood. Please also note that our county sites are also still available for testing and vaccination, and those are free to all. I also want to note that the testing at the county sites are saliva, so saliva test versus in other places they might use a nasal swab. So if you're not particularly keen on doing that, you can always go to the county for saliva testing, and they're also doing testing for children and vaccination as well. Lastly, we have 2 discussion items for our Board of Health this evening. One is the adoption of the resolution to enter into a shared service agreement with the Mental Health Association of Essex and Morris for our Crisis Intervention Social Worker Pilot Program for this year in 2022. Secondly is this adopting for the Township to adopt the New Jersey Department of Health new CDC isolation and quarantine guidance. If you are not familiar with this new CDC isolation and quarantine guidance, CDC released it around December 27th, essentially saying that because we are dealing with a faster variant of COVID-19, the Omicron variant, they have looked to decrease the isolation time, which was currently 10 days of isolation, down to 5 days of isolation if you have no symptoms. And then if you continue to have no symptoms after those 5 days of isolation, you can come out of your isolation and continue to wear a face mask around others as a protection. Furthermore, that shortened CDC quarantine guidance is that if you are a close contact of a person who's positive with COVID and you are not fully vaccinated, you would have to quarantine for 5 days and then monitor for symptoms, test on day 5, and then wear a mask around other people. If quarantining poses a hardship, they do allow for 10 days of wearing of strict wearing of a face mask when around others. I do want to emphasize that what they say as fully vaccinated and what they're considering as fully vaccinated at this point is anyone who has received the full vaccine regimen, which is 2 doses of Pfizer or 2 doses of Moderna or 1 dose of J&J and a booster. So those are some new things that are coming down the pike, and it is up for your discussion at this time. So I will stop my presentation and open it up to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davenport. Would anyone like to start our first discussion on entering to a shared services for 2022? I see thumbs up. Anyone like to
I'll move it.
Okay, second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Craig,
Yes.
Mayor Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. McGehee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Ms. Davenport, do you just want to provide a sentence or two about our second discussion item with the CDC? You gave a good explanation, but just to kind of refresh our colleagues.
Sure. So yeah, I'll ask Jerry to join in with me on this one. So essentially what I'm asking is the CDC guidance that the State Health Department has adopted applies to the general public. So anyone who goes to get tested, this is now the new recommendation that they're saying throughout New Jersey. I wanted to offer this up as what would we like to do for our township employees. I think it was very prudent of us that we got everybody vaccinated and that we're requiring proof of vaccination, throughout our township buildings for events. So this is just one more thing to add to consider for our workforce as we move forward. It's again 5 days of isolation that decreases because they found that one is more contagious in those first couple of days from symptom onset, and then 5 days of quarantine, test on day 5, and then wear a strict face mask similar to the isolation when you return back into the workforce or into the community.
Mr. Johns.
Just say I agree with adopting CDC guidance in the matter. I think we've always found them to be obviously a credible organization, and we follow their advice and guidance, and I see no reason why we wouldn't do it this time.
Thank you, Mr. Gimes. We've heard from our health officer, we've heard from our administrator. We know this is a part of the CDC guidelines. Does anyone have any issue or concern about moving forward? Mr. DeLuca.
I just have a question. Ms. Davenport, you said that the CDC is now defining fully vaccinated as the shots plus the booster. If we adopt this, will that mean that our vaccination policy for the public buildings will have to include the booster?
So I should probably, thank you for that. I should probably also mention that when they say fully vaccinated, it is the 2 doses plus the booster, means you don't have to quarantine, right? So remember when, if you got the full dosage, you didn't have to quarantine. Now, because we are dealing with the Omicron variant and we know that without the booster, you're not as protected as you could be, and therefore you're able to spread it to others faster. It is, if you have the full regimen plus the booster, you do not have to quarantine. If at this time you are 6 months out of that 2-month, 2-dose booster, you are not fully vaccinated and therefore would have to oblige by the 5-day quarantine.
Okay, but so if someone's having an event at the Woodland and they check someone's card and the person has 2 shots of Moderna properly spaced,
Mhm.
are they fully vaccinated?
Not according to the CDC at this time. They would require the booster. Whether we require, so the discussion here was mostly for our employees, but if you're talking about people attending, at this time, the CDC is saying now that it's a 2-doser plus the booster in order to be fully vaccinated.
Did they answer your question, Mr. DeLuca?
I'm not sure, but okay. I mean, I heard the answer. I'm trying to make the distinction between the you come in contact with somebody, and if you're fully vaccinated, your wait time, it's down to 5 days and all that. I had not heard that the general definition of being fully vaccinated includes a booster.
Yeah, I can provide that information to you. So again, this was just more for whether to assess the quarantine for our employees.
Right.
But I can get you that new definition for the
Well,
general
it's very
public.
important because we're now going to be making sure people are providing proof that they've been vaccinated. And I believe, like when I went to on vacation, I just had to show that I had 2 shots. I had a booster in addition, but to be would be considered fully vaccinated was at a restaurant. You had to show you had the 2 shots, and we're going to need some clear guidance. And on the employee side, we're going to need guidance. It's one thing to say you're vaccinated, you need to be vaccinated. It's another thing to say you need to be fully vaccinated, or you have to be quarantined for 5 days. What are we saying? It's sort of a little. It diminishes what we were saying before with the being able to quarantine. If you got to be fully vaccinated with a booster, then we ought to say that.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Desiderio, you had a point. I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, I don't know. Has Ms. Davenport circulated this to everybody? I have not seen it. So Ms. Davenport, if I may make a suggestion, can you put something on paper specifically with what your recommendation is? So that, and I think ultimately it should be passed by the governing body, not by the Board of Health, if you're going to adopt it, because it's going to be a policy that Mr. Johns is going to have to put in place. So if you could make those recommendations, and then I would suggest either at the next Board of Health meeting or at the next Township Committee meeting at your wishes, you can entertain this. But I think it needs to be, each of you need to clearly understand the impact of what Ms. Davenport is recommending.
So noted, Mr. Desiderio. What we can do is this, Ms. Davenport, if you have no issues with that, we can follow through on that request. Mr. Jimes, in your report in 2 weeks, we can have this discussion as part of your report. Mayor, does that work with you?
Sure does.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Davenport. But don't go anywhere. That concludes our 2 discussion items, but I do want to open up for the committee to ask any questions regarding your excellent report. The floor is open. Ms. Adams.
Yeah, I know we're going to get something in writing from Ms. Davenport on this, but just more clarification on not necessarily the policy or the CDC, but the actual effectiveness of a booster or not a booster, right? So you have 2 shots or whatever, you're fully vaccinated in the previous definition, and then you get the booster. So you said, I think 75%.
Yeah, the effectiveness of the vaccine has now boosted up to back to a better level at 75%. So yes, once you get the vaccine, I'll use Moderna as an example. It has 96% effectiveness, right? And the vaccine is always meant to reduce hospitalization and death, and then cause mild infection if you get reinfected, right? So you get the vaccine, it lasts for 6 months, and that's when they ask you to get the booster because the effectiveness starts to wane. Once you get the booster, it goes back up to an acceptable level of 75% effectiveness against Omicron variant. So that if you get exposed to Omicron, you get COVID, and you hopefully will experience no or mild illness.
Okay, so I guess that's fine. So if you don't get the booster, you're at what, 50% instead of 75%, like in effectiveness? Like you were at 9 when you first got the
35%.
So you're all the way down to 35%.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And that's not just Omicron, that's Delta as well because of the wearing off of the first vaccines, correct?
Yeah, it's unfortunately, yes, because Delta and Omicron are in the community right now, right? So it makes you vulnerable to either one. But what is the dominant and growing variant right now in the community is Omicron. So most likely it is that.
So if I'm an employer in my job outside of Township, Maplewood job, I need to require, and I require my staff to get fully vaccinated, I need to require them to get a booster.
Yes, in order to protect them, and if you're going to follow the CDC guidance of the shortened quarantine. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Mayor Daffis, do you have a question?
I do not.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for the Board of Health? All right, hearing none, we will now open up the floor for the public to address the Board of Health. Mr. Waltz.
Good evening, Mr. McGehee, and the Township Committee will now allow comment for the Board of Health meeting. Would any meeting attendee like to address the Board of Health? Please use the raise your hand function. We'll convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes. Mr. McGehee, first up, I have first name Ellen only again. So if you could please give your full first and last name and address before addressing them, it would be greatly appreciated.
Hi again, it's Ellen Archer. I just have a question for you, Candace. Oh my gosh, you are amazing. And it was so helpful. Do you have any idea when the vaccines, the booster for ages 12 to 15 will be available locally? I have not had success yet, and I'm hoping you have some information. Thank you so much. I suppose I will mute and stop the video.
Thank you, Ms. Archer.
Thank you, Ellen. So you won't be able to find the booster at this time for 12 to 15-year-olds until the CDC and the ACIP have given it their go-ahead. And then the state has to give it the go-ahead in order for them to release booster doses to at least the county and then to private entities like CVS pharmacies and Walgreens. So you won't see it until the CDC approves it, then the ACIP, and then in the state health department has to then approve it. So hopefully things are going as fast and furious as they are. Hopefully we'll see it in the next, at the end of the week, if not end of next week, to be able to get those boosters for our 12 to 15-year-old students and kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davenport. Mr. Waltz, do we have anyone else who wants to address the Board of Health?
Yes, Mr. McGehee. Next, we have Rujan Shen. We'll convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes.
Okay, so a little faster this time. Thank you, Ms. Davenport. I just have a question about preschools, because we know that vaccines are only available for kids 5 and above, and then there's a large population below that age cutoff that are currently unvaccinated, therefore they're relatively high risk. So I was wondering if the township and together with South Orange have sort of any sort of mitigation measures for this this part of the population. Like, for example, my kid goes to a preschool in South Orange. They are doing a weekly PCR test, which in my opinion is grossly inadequate to screen out any Omicron infections, given the short incubation period and how fast this thing spreads. So I just wanted to see if you have any thoughts on that.
Thank you, Rujan. So your question is about mitigation strategies in the preschools. So we've worked with daycare centers from the beginning of putting in mitigation strategies in place. We are giving them the guidance for this new isolation and quarantine, which does not currently apply to them. So this one with the shortened INQ of 5 and 5, that doesn't apply currently for daycare centers or for children. The State Health Department has asked that while we are in high community transmission, very high, while we are very high community transmission, all childcare centers and schools should use an abbreviated 7 to 10 day quarantine and a 10-day isolation. So we're still trying to be as careful with this vulnerable population as possible. Your daycare center should also have mask wearing for anyone who's above the age of 2, and should be practicing social distancing and cohorting, hand washing, and teaching our kids to cover their cough. All of those things should be in place. We try to do as much education, but we know that the daycare centers have really gotten into this and embraced this. They're also doing outdoor activities, trying to use as much ventilation and air outside as possible. So all of these strategies work to hopefully keep the community transmission from coming into the classroom as much as possible. When we do have a case in a daycare center, however, we do monitor that, and the classroom where that case is goes under quarantine. So that helps to mitigate the spread in that classroom and then to other classrooms in that daycare facility. So that's what we do to assist them at the local health department level. I hope that helps.
Thank you again, Ms. Davenport. Mr. Waltz, does anyone else want to address the Board of Health this time?
Mr. McGee, I have no one else at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Waltz. And Ms. Davenport, one quick thing you said in your report, and I meant to say it earlier, you talked about the rates from 5+ and the percentage of those have been vaccinated. Is there any data about those between the ages of 5 and 11, is that segment in terms of how much they've been vaccinated?
Yes, so thank you for bringing that up. So the 5 to 11-year-olds just recently got opened up to receive the vaccination. Unfortunately, the vaccination for them has been a little slower than we would like. Currently in Maplewood, we have 8% of our 5 to 11-year-olds who are fully vaccinated. So that's only 8% of those who are eligible in Maplewood, ages 5 to 11, are fully vaccinated. We really have to do a bigger push of getting those children vaccinated. If there's an issue with, transportation or location or access, please give our office a call and we'll try to assist you with resources and accessing resources on how to get there or to find the nearest location where you can get that vaccine. If you have questions about the vaccine, you can always ask your pediatrician. Some pediatric offices are providing them as well, but we also know the county gives them. Other locations like our local pharmacies are also giving them out. So we want to encourage all 5 to 11-year-olds to please get vaccinated so that when we enter back into school on January 10th, all of us will hopefully be more vaccinated. We'll all be tested. We'll go in clean and hopefully will not have any more community transmission outbreaks.
Thank you, Ms. Davenport. We also know, as the mayor, recognized on Reorg Day, the amazing work that our county's doing at Livingston, especially for our young people. When you went to get your booster, you probably saw the amazing display and experience for our young people. So please, families, take advantage of this. This is really important. It's going to help us overarching as a community. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the January Board of Health meeting.
So moved.
Second. All in
Ms.
favor?
Adams?
Well, actually, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Mayor Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and we will see Ms. Davenport on Tuesday, February 1st. Thank you for your time. Mayor, I yield the floor to you.
At this point, we have report from departments. We do not have reports from departments this evening. We're going to move into administrative reports, and we'll begin with Township Administrator Gimes. Mr. Gimes.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief tonight. Just as we head into the new year, a few things we're going to be working on that we'll be working on collectively is the budget process. As you know, the CFO and I will be meeting shortly to go over that process. And we have a finance committee meeting also set for the end of this week and we'll move forward with scheduling budget hearings and moving that process along. We'll continue into the new year working on many of the things we've been working on from a technological standpoint, a sustainability standpoint, and also as we get closer to the spring when the budget's adopted, we'll be moving forward on any capital programs, capital budgeting items that you ultimately approve as a group. From a personnel standpoint, we have several positions opening being advertised at the moment in the Department of Recreation and Cultural Affairs. We're a deputy court administrator, which you'll be voting on tonight in the consent agenda. An assistant CFO position is open, and we're accepting applications for that, along with some positions in DPW that we're reviewing as well. So, there's a lot going on internally and administratively now, and as we look towards the future. So with that, I'll reserve any comments I have on the several agenda items if you have any questions on those.
Thank you, Mr. Gimes. Are there any questions for Mr. Gimes? Seeing none, Mr. Desiderio.
Thank you, Mayor. Other than to welcome Ms. Kripe, I have nothing else.
Any questions for Mr. Desiderio? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Desiderio. Ms. Fritzen?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of items. So the first thing I wanted to bring to your attention, following up from a notification I made today to the Township Committee. Inadvertently, we had an omission of an appointment on the New Year's Day agenda. So I'd like you to please consider the appointment for Superintendent of Public Works, Caesar Riccardi.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Kripe,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. McGeehee,
Yes.
Mayor Daffis.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen.
Thank you. My only other thing, Mayor, is to report that I'm going to be moving the 2021 eligibility of parking permits and jitney combos to the end of January. We've experienced delay after delay of our round of parking permits. Just like, half the world is delayed on receiving things, we are as well. Promised today that they were shipped out of Minnesota, so we will see. But first it was a warehouse issue, and then it was a transportation issue, and now it's a postage issue. So rather than have anyone with a 2021 permit worry about, if they'd have to come in here on the 15th, I'm going to extend it to the 30th with the Township Committee's endorsement. And that's my report.
Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Are there any questions for Ms. Fritzen? Ms. Adams?
Yeah, I'm fine with that, but I think I'd like the administration and the clerk's office to look at a sort of modernizing our permit process with regard to, instead of actual physical permits, most are going into license plate recognition, and maybe we could do something like that. Don't know if we have the equipment and what kind of capital layout that might be, but I think maybe it's time, and it would make it easier for things like this.
Okay, any information that you could provide, that would be great. Just, send it my way and we take a look.
We've actively looked at that, and it's something that's been on the radar. So we'll move that along.
Yeah, I think this just amplifies the need for it.
Mr. DeLuca?
Just to be clear about the extension, do we need to pass something so that we are not giving tickets out during the month of January?
Well, I, had made contact with the police chief and the parking enforcement officials.
Yeah, I think a motion, Mr. DeLuca.
I would move it. I
Yeah.
would move it.
I'll second it.
And this is to extend through to what, February 1st?
January 30th.
Extending through January 30th, the old parking permit?
2021. The
Okay,
2021s.
okay.
That's my motion.
I second it.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Kripe,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. McGeehee,
Yes.
Mayor Daffis.
Yes. Are
Thank-
there any? Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Any further questions for Ms. Fritzen? Okay, seeing none, we're moving on to reports from elected officials. Committee Member Adams.
I have no report, Mayor. Happy New Year, everybody.
Committee Member McGee.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few quick things. One is that we received 4 proposals for the master plan. So the committee is reviewing those. They will be reviewing them through the 14th, next Friday. And then the committee will meet on the 19th, I believe it's a Wednesday, at 7:30 to discuss their evaluations based off of information provided by Ms. Miller through the process. Public safety meeting will be next Wednesday on the 12th of January. As public safety chair, I'll be leading that meeting. Agenda's already been sent out. Shared services, myself and Mr. DeLuca met with our colleagues in South Orange in December. Ongoing conversations, and we'll reconvene with them sometime in January to discuss other parts of the shared services. And finally, myself and Ms. Adams will reconvene the communications meeting the first Tuesday in the last week of January. We've already put our agenda out, and we're looking forward to move forward with some initiatives started by the previous committee, inclusive of advancing our website and an incremental or better way to provide our community with the way to get involved with our committees. That is my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Deputy Mayor DeLuca.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one quick thing. We are continuing to compile data that we will be submitting to FEMA for Tropical Storm Ida. We're meeting with FEMA on Monday to go over our both our personnel costs and our damages and remediation costs. So we have a planning meeting Thursday, and then we're meeting with them on Monday, and we'll be submitting as much as we can get reimbursed for.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Committee Member Cripe.
I have no report, nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
And that makes sense, being that you just joined us. And welcome aboard again. My report is to also, as Ms. Adams did, wish everyone a very happy new year. Let's hope that it's a healthier new year. And we are all individually in control of that by being vigilant about our health, our vaccinations, our social distancing, and all the other mitigation that we all can practice every day, including masking. And consider double masking if you're indoors, especially with Omicron. I also want to congratulate again Ms. Cripe for joining us. We're so proud and happy to have you with us, and we're going to do great things together. I just know it. I also want to congratulate Ms. Adams for her reelection for her 3rd term on the Township Committee. Clearly, she has not had enough and she wants more. She's been a very dedicated public servant even before she became an elected official. And once again, proof of how hard everyone works on this governing body for all of our residents in our great community of Maplewood. And just announcing, as publicly noticed already, that the Community Board on Police will have its first meeting of the new year tomorrow evening, starting at 7:30 p.m. via Zoom. The link is posted and published on our website. And that's my report. And that takes us into our discussion item. It's no secret what that is. I'm going to let Ms. Adams tee it off.
Thank you, Mayor. A fulsome comment period tonight. You know, most of us, I'm glad Ms. Cripe was here to hear it. The rest of us have sat through many hours of public comment on this topic, as we all know. But all of the information that was given was, it's no secret, I agree with personally. And this is something we've been sort of talking about. So right now, we don't permit the use of gas-powered leaf blowers for 5 months of the year. Clearly, there's a desire to move on and try to make it full all year round. I don't disagree. I think the health effects alone are really substantial. And a couple people mentioned the blood pressure raising the minute they hear them. They're not alone, and it's also documented in scientific studies that this is something that happens. So it's not just, you know, the annoyance or the quality of life, although those are very real and very important. So, you know, I don't want to rehash everything everyone said, but as Mr. Desiderio will also attest to, we will be having to revisit our ordinance anyway in the upcoming months. Mr. Desiderio, Mr. Palma, and I have met with Maplewood Country Club to work with their very specific issues and very unique issues with regard to maintaining a golf course to the level that a golf course is expected, but especially a private club to be maintained to a certain level. And there are certain carve outs that we may have to do for the country club, mostly because one specific piece of equipment called the Buffalo blower does not have an electric counterpart at this time. But that was something that we were going to be bringing back to the Township Committee anyway with regard to the country club to make them compliant. And also as they learn more and hire experts in maintaining their country club property to the level they need to maintain it and in as green a way as possible. So just for the record, we made it through this entire year of my own house and property without putting any leaves on the street, no piles of leaves on the to be picked up by our township, which is about $500,000 a year that it costs us, costs our taxpayers. You know, we mulch them into the yard, we put them into the landscape beds, and I think the green team will be called upon to really help educate, along with the volunteers at Quiet Maplewood, to help educate the public as to the benefits of leaving the leaves, if you will. But I would agree with a couple of the residents who spoke with regard to the timeline. I think we can do this over the next year instead of 2 years. And I would like to open the discussion for banning gas-powered leaf blowers year-round, beginning in January of 2023. I think many of our contractors in town have already purchased electric leaf blowers to do the jobs that they are doing now during those 5 months. I think there's just sort of by way of many things gas powered, this is just the way we have to start going. We have to start going electric. And so to the extent that we could change our ordinance to phase out the other 7 months of the year for gas powered leaf blower usage in town, I would like to see that happen. So Mayor, did I leave anything out or did you have anything you want to add?
I think you covered it very well, Ms. Adams. I'm going to let others speak and then I'll speak last. Deputy Mayor DeLuca.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions and then a comment or two. Is there any town right now that bans leaf blowers year round in New Jersey?
In New Jersey, no, not that I know of.
And is there any state legislation that's been proposed?
There's I believe there's senator in Middlesex or Somerset County who has introduced gas powered leaf blower legislation.
Senator Singer?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. And do we know if that's going anywhere or is that just for show?
I don't know, actually. I was going to reach out to him after the new year to offer my assistance if he needs it in moving it forward, but I don't know where that is now.
So my reaction is that, look, I share a lot of the same, I was going to say hatred of these blowers. I mean, they're just horrible. I am concerned about the balance in town and making sure that residents across town understand what we're talking about and have an opportunity to think through how it would affect them and give us their input. Mr. Poor said that 100% except for his family on his block. And my guess is that some of the bigger homes that have a lot of trees are using landscapers. And I'd like to hear from them some of their concerns. So that makes me want to think of a longer term than a year. I would actually be interested in adopting Montclair's ban for 2022, which is really like 4 months that it's allowed. March through April, March through May, March 15th through May 15th, and then October 15th through December 15th. And I think that's an interim step we ought to look at and then move to any kind of a permanent ban after that. But I would like to engage more people. I don't think people are thinking about this now because we're getting ready for snow, not leaves. And I'm concerned that as we push people not to use leaf blowers and not to use gas-powered leaf blowers and landscapers, I'm not sure where the technology is. I want to hear about it. And I'm concerned that people are going to resist our planting of trees. We get it now that people don't want street trees because they don't want the leaves. And so we've got to think about this. There's a cause and effect here. And so I would just like to have more conversation. I'm willing to do an interim step. I like the Montclair version as a step to doing something else, but I would like to engage more people in this conversation.
Mr. McGehee?
Thank you, Mayor. I think first and foremost, we heard a lot of compelling, statements tonight. There's no question that this is an environmental issue, and you can bifurcate it between sound and in terms of your lungs and how you breathe the gas. So there's no question. I think that was sound, and I agree with that. One person talked about the OSHA, which I thought was very compelling. And then another resident talked about, I think the quote was that we could do a lot of proclamations, but we got to, but this is really of substance. And I thought that was a good point because, one of the things that I think we should definitely do as we move forward toward a ban is, and we can circle back as members of code, but just get understanding about the weight of doing this on our code enforcement. I don't want to pass ordinance with no teeth. I want to make sure we can enforce something so that we have the right resources, be it people or whoever, to help us enforce this. And maybe Mr. Palmer and her team can come back and give us some data about the number of people, the number of code violations she's had to deal with historically over a period of time. Somewhat more data on that, because I'm in favor of doing something, but I don't want to pass it unless we're going to be able to enforce it. We got to make sure that we have the teeth behind it. And then also, as I think it was Ms. Flath said, I wonder what South Orange is doing. We talk about shared services, right? We talk about, from our fire, to health services and many other our municipal courts. But why aren't we doing this with South Orange? Where is South Orange? Let's have a conversation with them and their green team and their environmentalists and see if we could do something that goes across all of SOMA or MAPSO, right? Let's focus there as well. And then the third point, which I thought was very compelling, I heard several times, especially by the runner, I want to say her name was Miss Brittany, and I apologize if I got that wrong, is about the leaves in the street. And that's a very compelling point. And I know in Summit, for example, or Short Hills, I can't remember, one of those towns, that the landscapers do not put the leaves in the street until the week of it. So the leaves actually stay on the property, be it, someplace on the property. And then they have a schedule and they know when it's time to put those leaves in the street. And they put them in the street in that week, which subsequently mitigates some of the risks that we talked about, runners, bicyclists, any people along those lines. So I think we should, that's probably bifurcating this issue, but be it an electric blower or not, I think we also need to look at how our leaf collection process is done. And I think we need to enhance that. I am interested in hearing more about the option that Mr. DeLuca discussed. That's the first time I heard about it. I'm definitely in favor of moving forward toward the ban, but just want to go back and get more data on code enforcement. I like to look at what Mr. DeLuca said, and I also think very compelling point, which I thought about as well, is that we also should send out a communication to the entire community and let them know what's happening. We should let them know, through our email server, like, hey, we're talking about banning, leaf blowers town-wide year round, and see, because we heard from everyone who were great, but we heard just one side. We didn't hear from the other side or any other argument. I just want us to not do something in a vacuum and be transparent and let it be open to the broader community. So those are my remarks. Thank you, Mayor.
Ms.
Mayor,
Adams,
yeah.
and then we'll go to Ms. Cripe.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to address a couple of the points that Mr. McGee made. And now I'm trying to remember what they all were, but there were a couple of things I wanted to let you know about. Yeah, I'll ask you if you want. The enforcement is the main one I wanted to address, in that if they're banned year round, the enforcement becomes about as easy as it could possibly be, because there's no starts and stops. It's, oh, I thought it's ended October 1st, whatever, so it's just more clear cut. And that's one of the reasons that, we were interested in putting it forward. The leaves being put out, once upon a time, some of the landscapers did keep the leaves on the property until the week that but as far as enforcing that, that's one of the hardest ones to enforce, because the week of that they have to put them out on, we have enforced it, but it's really difficult to do. But that's part of the problem, the overall overarching problem of what to do with the leaves. But yeah, so, and then there was something else you mentioned. I can't remember what it was. Did I miss a point?
You might have, I think South Orange. Where are we with
South Orange? Yeah, South Orange is now, I believe, considering a seasonal ban of leaf blowers. They've reached out to me a few times, different volunteers, and in our joint meetings we've had on zero waste with South Orange, that's something that Ms. Collum let me know that is definitely being addressed and actively pursued. So to the extent that they do a seasonal one, that would be awesome. If they want to join us doing year round, I'm all for that. So
yeah, me too. I think they should just, I can't speak for the electeds there, but I'd love to see them just join at least where we are already. It just makes it more synergy, and we're just so far ahead of South Orange right now. I'm surprised. So
yes, we are. No, and I think
Ms. Craig.
Yeah, I have two questions. And this could also be just a procedure thing that'll happen afterwards. But as far as what I'm thinking with them switching to electric leaf blowers, if we have to use them at all, who is going to be supplying the electricity? Our families who maybe don't have outside or external electric hookups going to have to pay to have one put outside if they use a lawn service? Or would these lawn services have generators? Exactly what are they going to do? Is it going to add to a burden to our residents or make it easier? That's my first question. And then the second would be what is the education piece going to be behind it? Because I think with a lot of the people in the community, they'd be on board with not having to pay a landscaper to do the leaf cleanup, but how do you maintain it in such a very green community? Because I only have one big tree in my backyard, and I have collected leaves and hung on to them as much as I can. And they're a good 2 foot thick back there. My dog gets lost in them. That's how thick it is. So if I have one big long growth tree and someone has maybe 5, will there be a way for them to kind of do both, have some of those picked up by the township as well as learn how to compost them at home?
So I would just quickly say that most of the when you say electric leaf blowers, they're mostly battery operated. So they have them charged. Sometimes landscapers who use electric in only electric, and so they can't keep them charged all day. They will use some, they will plug them in sometimes. at houses, or they'll have enough of a supply that can take them through the day. And as far as the maintenance thing, that's why I brought up the green team who could work in concert with the garden club and other local experts in gardening as to maintenance for leaves for, because there's also been a push for, to remove that obligation by the township. And that's something maybe we need to talk about budgetarily, as something that either those who want their leaves picked up by the township, maybe that's an additional charge, but that's a whole nother hill of beans or ball of wax to get into. So, but it's something to consider.
Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is it's not a question of if we should do this, but rather a question of when and how. I think there is consensus, and why wouldn't there be, to phase these out. And I say, why wouldn't there be? Because this is a very engaged governing body, very close to all of our residents, a governing body that accepts science, a governing body that is very sensitive to health and wellness and to environmental justice, which includes workers' rights. So everything that's been said tonight by the experts on this, I think we all accept it. The question is, how do we do it? Personally, I want to see us phase this out sooner rather than later. We can certainly get more input from our residents. We can certainly get code enforcement data. I think all of that we should do. We should always be balanced in our policy making. It's certainly easier to convince people to do the right thing when they have more information, right? So we definitely need to do fulsome education. But to go from what we have now to maybe a smaller seasonal thing, and waiting maybe 2 or even more years to phase them out entirely, I think is not what I would favor. But as mayor, I want to bring us all together, and I want to do the right thing by everyone if we can. The technology is available in ways that it was not 5 or 6 years ago, certainly 10 years ago when we first started speaking about this. It's widely available, easy to find these battery-powered leaf blowers, and they're also accessible. They're cheaper than there were. I have one, and I've seen professional landscapers, some of the bigger companies that operate throughout town, I've seen them use them on big properties. So I don't think, and they know that we've been talking about this. They know it's coming. The thing is, we have to educate the residents. And that is something that we need to do. So I think what we need to do is go back to code and think this through a little bit more. Certainly talk about how we can revise our ordinance. As Ms. Adams indicated, we certainly need to revise our ordinance anyway, because we do want to make certain accommodations, if not exactly exceptions, for some of our bigger landscapers, like those who maintain the golf club, right? And in those discussions, we can get information from code enforcement about enforcement, and we can also engage the Green Team and the Environmental Advisory Committee to do education. But that has to start soon, because we've talked about this before. We talked about doing a phased-in approach. We've agreed from code committee to do this, and this governing body has agreed to a phased-in ban at some point. We've talked about it before. We sat through this presentation. Tonight's presentation by Quiet Maplewood was a summary of what we've seen before. We've heard from doctors and experts. So I'd like to see us move it forward rather than talking about it again, say this time next year. So if we can agree to a timeline of gathering more information, getting more information from Montclair, speaking to South Orange, and seeing what they're going to do and possibly engaging with them to do something together, which makes sense. We have to have an implementation plan. There has to be a timeline. So, I mean, am I capturing what everybody has said accurately?
Yeah, I think I can bring it to code next meeting, which is next week. We meet, and that's where we can start. Possible, what I will ask them to consider is having 20, because we need to change it if we're going to change anything, if we want to speed up the timeline and take into consideration Mr. DeLuca's, using Montclair's model. We could make Montclair's model happen in Maplewood this year and then phase them out next year. Because this is sort of the time of year we always talk about this, because we want to get it in place before the seasons start and the timelines start. So we'll talk about it at code next week. And then to the extent that we can, all the convincing in the world we can do to South Orange, I'm all for it. I don't think, we necessarily need to do it together, because it's separate, ordinances, separate towns, separate enforcement anyway. But it would be great, because I've always heard from people on the board who live on the border how frustrated they are by South Orange being noisy and stuff. So with your permission, I'll take it back to code and bring it back to our next meeting in a couple of weeks with a recommendation from code.
Right. Is everyone else okay with that as a starting point? I'm seeing heads nodding.
Yeah, I just think that we have to be clear, we haven't agreed on anything. And we've gotten 2 presentations. That's what we've gotten. So we've never had a vote on anything. So I like what Ms. Adams is talking about, is going to code and coming back with a proposal that we're going to vote up or down. So I'm prepared now to vote for the Montclair stuff, because I think it's a step in that direction. So, but you got to have something on the table. Just listening to the presentation and shaking their heads doesn't get us to 3 votes. And that's what you got to get to.
Yeah, and I wasn't going to suggest that we take a vote tonight at all. I wanted to have a discussion about it and see where everybody is. So it sounds like we have a plan in motion to go in the right direction here. And that makes me happy. Everyone seems to be comfortable with that. And more to come on that issue. So that is the end of our discussion agenda, because that was the only item. And now I'm going to entertain a motion to adopt items 12A through 12P and 12R through 12AJ of our consent agenda.
I think it's Ms. Kripe's duty to.
Was trying to unmute Mr. Mayor.
Oh, it's just that seat for some reason over the last.
Yeah, I'm sitting here pushing the button and nothing's happening. I move to the adoption of the resolutions.
That Mayor just said.
There, yes. I'm trying to think 50, what was it, 5, 10, LJ, LMNOP. Yes, 12A through Q as the equal request. No, 12A through I, and 12K through AJ.
So listen, let me make it easier on you. I'm going to say it, and then if you want to move it, you move it, and then we'll have a second. So can I get a motion moving items 12A through 12P and 12R through 12AJ in the consent agenda? That's correct.
Mr. Mayor, I move the adoption of the resolutions moving it forward from 12A to 12Q and 12R through 12AJ.
Okay. Okay, so let's try it one more time, and this is okay.
I was saying it's still wrong.
Don't say it. After he says it, just say, I'll move that.
Yeah. Right.
Perfect. Thank you. That would have been nice to know.
Okay, this is experience. This is growth. This is all good. All right, so here we go. Can I get a motion moving items 12A through 12P and 12R through 12AJ of our consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I move that.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Kripe?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor Daffis?
Yes. And
Mayor. Mayor, may I make a motion to move resolution 12Q, resolution number 21-22?
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Croy,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. McGehee,
Yes.
Mayor Daffis.
Abstain. And this brings us to our second public comment period. Mr. Waltz.
Good evening, Mayor and Township Committee. We'll now begin the second public comment portion of the meeting on any subject matter. If any meeting attendee would like to address the Township Committee, please use the raise your hand function. It will convert you over to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes to speak. Mayor, first up, I have Rachel Metka. We'll convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes to speak. You're muted.
Sorry. I just wanted to comment on a few of the comments that were made, obviously about the ghastly flower ban. One, just about combining it with South Orange, I just wanted to say that, I love that idea, but I also think we should acknowledge that we've had a partial ban for 6 years. And, thanks to this committee's leadership, like we're a leader on this. And just to acknowledge like everything that has been accomplished and that has brought us to where we are now and why we can act now. And just quickly on the leaf blowers and like how they would be, if it would cost residents anything, or Dan spoke at our presentation in May saying that, it's like 10 cents to plug it in. And if most residents have it, and if they don't, it's fine to just go to the next resident that does. And it's just a non-issue. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Metka.
Mayor, next I have Dan Segal. We'll convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, my name is Dan Siegel. I really appreciated hearing the discussion just now. It was really gave me a lot of hope, and I think it's great that you're really taking it so seriously. Some of the things that you discussed, I just want to offer a slightly different perspective. Most residents really, they just outsource this work to the lawn maintenance company. People are busy with their lives. They have kids, they have this, they have no interest. Maybe they have a lot of leaves. They just pay the lawn maintenance company and say, take care of it. Because the township has put in place for a gazillion years, put your leaves out these weeks and all that stuff. It's got this thing going, oh, we got to get our leaves out. And the lawn maintenance companies have to justify their fees. So they show up way too frequently and do the work. And the homeowner thinks, oh, we're getting good service. So it's really a problem has been created rather than solved. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement. For example, you could still, the lawn maintenance companies could still use rakes. Remember those? They work. It's not a problem to move leaves. So there's really there's no technology thing going on here. And most people, even if there was really good education done, the way there was for recycling, they would say, oh, that's what the township wants. Okay, it's really a business regulation. It's not a resident regulation. This is really a business regulation. As far as enforcement, I think Committeewoman Adams' point that if it was essentially all year, the Montclair model would essentially be all year because they're October 15th to December 15th. you know, during the spring months, I've seen that the lawn maintenance
30
companies
seconds.
are compliant. And I do believe you really need to consider incentives. Because if we want to give tax breaks to developers, perhaps we want to really create monetary incentives, much smaller, to the lawn maintenance companies.
10 seconds.
That's how you change behavior. So I think it's entirely doable in the next several months. It's really not a big deal.
Mayor, I see no one else.
And we will close the second public comment period, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Ms. Adams, to adjourn.
Yes.
Ms. Kreis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
yes.
Mr. McGehee,
Yes.
Mayor Daffis.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and thank you all again for joining us this evening. We'll see you again on the 18th, right here at the same time, 7:30
Same
p.m.
time, same station.
Good night.
Night.
All right.
Night.
Good night, everyone.